When you're filming a wine show in South Africa, you'd expect to be in probably Stellenbosch, maybe the Hemelanata Valley, possibly head up to the Swartland. Sitting with an ostrich in the Klein Karoo with snow-capped mountains behind you, probably not what you were counting on. But there's a very good reason for being here. This is the Ritfontaine Ostrich Palace, and while I'm not surrounded by vineyards, I am surrounded by people with a rich history in making wine, people who've been here for over 150 years, and people are involved not just with making some great Cape vintage a little further down the road in Calitzdorp, but also with a brand new and very exciting brand of wine that includes some terrific Chenin. Welcome to another episode of Adventures in Chenin, and welcome to the Fledge. So it's a near Arctic day outside, which is why we're sitting inside very happily in a place that's just full of history, and it's not just general history, it's real family history in the Klein Karoo. Before I introduce you to the brand, it's a very warm welcome to Adventures in Chenin, to Margaux and to Leon. Guys, lovely to be here, and thank you so much for having us in a place, Margaux, that's really special to you, not just this building, but this whole part of the world.
Ja, nou, de Klein Karoo is, I was born and lived. I'm 7th generation. And the place we are at the moment is my mom's family farm. So my uncle is at the moment head here, Kobus, and we're sitting here at Ritfontaine Ostrich Palace. And it's the oldest working ostrich farm in South Africa. So the ostriches, the boom ostriches, the house was built in the 1909, and yeah, it's a beautiful history, and we're sitting in an old barn that when they were feeding the horses. So yeah, no, it's a beautiful place with a lot of history, and we can have lots of lacquer wines.
Which we certainly will. It feels warm and it feels welcoming, and it feels like I've come home to an extent, and I get the sense, Leon, it feels the same to you, even though your history isn't quite as entrenched here as Margaux's.
No, unfortunately not. I got beached in the Klein Karoo in 2012. Had visited beforehand because it only took about 13 years before she said she'd marry me. So things happen really slowly in the Karoo. But yeah, I'm a transplant from the northeastern Cape to the Swartland, and then from Stellenbosch to basically the Klein Karoo and Calitzdorp with my lovely wife, Margaux.
You had to think about that for just a moment.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. We actually got married on this property as well.
Just outside, yeah?
Yeah, there's also a family graveyard here, so it's birth, deaths and marriages happen all on this spot. And yeah, it was a hell of a lacquer party. Old Donnie Statler, he didn't want to go home. It was 1:30 in the morning, and the last taxi was leaving, and he's like, no, we'll catch the next one. And the poor guy said, no, okay, I'll go drop him off, and then I'll come pick you up. So at about 2:30, we had to take a broom and tell them all to leave. But yeah, so yeah, it's a lacquer part of the world, and thanks for coming down. Usually it's warm here, and sunny skies. We got around about 360 days of sunshine every year, and we've picked a day that there's not too much sunshine, but it does look a bit like Switzerland in the background. So.
Well, the weather is secondary to both the company and the wine, of which I have high hopes for both. The story of Fledge we'll get into in a moment. Margaux, just give us a little bit of background. Your family is very, very closely linked to one particular type of wine. Tell us a little bit about this family tradition and about you picking up the baton for that tradition.
Since 2007, I've been on the family farm, Boerplaas family vineyards, and yeah, I'm 7th generation, and my dad gave me the reins from 2009, so mere 2 years, and we've been making still wines, but also the fortifieds that we're quite famous for. And yeah, we do use Chenin in some of the white ports, but today we do, like when me and Leon do a lot of experimental wines, and then also doing our own thing from different areas all around South Africa.
Speaking of different areas around South Africa, this is one where, particularly with the fortified Calitzdorp, is the home of them here in South Africa. The northeastern Cape, Leon, not quite so celebrated for its vineyards. We know the Nel family history with wine. What's your background in wine?
Sheep farming. So actually, you'd be surprised. Near one of the coldest parts in South Africa, to Ritfontaine, I think it's called, near Maltina, there's actually a large grapevine, a Katoba, old Vitis non-vinifera, so it doesn't bear winemaking fruit, but they call it slippery Jims, and we had one on our farm as well. And as a kid, my grandmother would let me pick the slippery Jims to make children's wine. So yeah, I'm a bit of a strange card because my dad's Afrikaans from the Swartland, from Koringberg, and his family, yeah, he had an uncle or great uncle that was so proliferous with distilling brandy that he had a bit of an accident with his kettle and made it explode, and that's the only reason the taxman found out about their dubious dealings with brandy. His name was Klaas Brandewijn, and the taxman only found out when he blew off the shed's roof. Wine was part of our Sunday lunch tables with lamb. It was always a little bit of KWV, which my father would get from Paul on somebody's quota, still in the old days. And yeah, so yeah, transplanted to the Swartland, went to Hoërskool Swartland with David Sadi of Nadia and David Sadi fame. And then I ended up in Stellenbosch doing something I shouldn't have done, accountancy, and then met my wife at a braai. She stole my cap, and that's...
Ja, no, Stellenbosch, well, my dad always said, if you can't find a husband in Stellenbosch, and bring him home, you will not be married. So you have to find a husband while studying.
Is the stealing a cap story actually true?
It was after a Nederburg auction. As students, we always went with my family to the Nederburg auction, and after, I can imagine a few, as a student, you don't say no to wine or free lunch. So after the auction, we had a braai, and yes, there was no chairs, and there was a guy with a hat, and I just stole the hat and sit on his lap.
Biggest bargain is the storm was also on that day, Dan.
Which, of course, you remember more clearly. Well, look, you clearly stole his cap, you clearly stole his heart as well, and you stole him away to this part of the world where we now find yourself not just making the fortified to the old family label, but this newer one. What was the history? What sparked the idea of the Fledge?
Yeah, Leon got back to the farm. I phoned him after one of my cellar hands passed away, and he got in an old car and drove all the way to Calitzdorp to come help on the family farm. And yes, that year it was a bit more hectic, but after that we were starting to experiment with some of the farm's grapes, just doing different things. And because at Boerplaas there's obviously a tradition of certain things who have to be done, and so experimenting is in a lesser sense able to do. So then we started experimenting and making our own label of the Fledge wines.
I did my first vintage in 2007 when somebody said to me, you can't make wine, and I said, okay, well, I'll give it a bash, and went on and did that, and ever since 2007, every year I've been involved with a vintage. We started out small. Her dad said to us, we're not allowed to make anything the farm does, which is quite tough. They do 72 different wines, which we still do for them. And then there was this lovely old bush vine, Chenin, from the old Bredell farm near Somerset West. So old bush vines looked over False Bay. They've now been grubbed out. We'll be tasting one of the last vintages ever with fruit from it in, and tasted the stuff and thought, gee, this is fantastic. And then 2012, we bottled our first Chenin, full 240 bottles of Hoeksteen in Stellenbosch Chenin. And from then on, we've just been experimenting and growing at an almost Steinhoff type rate. But we don't have great internet and we don't have great TV, so we've got to do something. And her grandfather always used to say, with much glee in his heart, that they are wine people. And we're just trying to carry that on. So to that end, we're working with 50 vineyards. This last vintage is 50 vineyards, 26 varieties, and our most northerly vineyard is Paquetteberg. Until next year, we're going further north. Most westerly is Darling, where you can see the ocean, and then we still smockle around in Stellenbosch, and now we're in the Voorpaardenberg, Elgin, as far south down as Agulhas. Further than that, you can't go, and then as easterly as George, just above George, and then we still use a little bit of Collerstorp and Karoo fruit for some of our wines. So yeah, do 20,000 kilometers just to pick up the grapes during vintage. So anybody who wants to know where to find a good pie and coffee across the whole Cape, they can phone me, because I've been to most farm stores. And yeah, that's it. That's what we do.
I mean, it sounds both wonderfully adventurous, but also like rather a lot of hard work. 20,000 kilometres a year, not just travelling with these grapes, but you've got to find them, decide that, okay, this one works, that one doesn't. How tough a process is that? How much time does it take out of you guys?
No, it takes quite a lot of time. We also taste different wines and then ask lots of questions to different winemakers, where the grapes are coming from, what are they doing. And then so we get to interesting farms and interesting farmers. Some of the farmers we've worked for quite a few years. Long before the Chenin Blancs, we were buying some other grapes from them, so we know they're good farmers. And then we just start talking to them and say, look, this patch of vineyard are actually quite good. Have a look at it. And then we will go look at it and taste the grapes and say, okay, fine, we can take a few crates and see what we can do, and then from there and things grow. And also, if you talk to a lot of winemakers, they've got also people they work with and say, we don't have space in our portfolio, but we love this. Go look at it. Maybe you can do something for it.
For a winemaker, what for you, Margaux, is the big attraction of Chenin Blanc, particularly here in South Africa?
Now, Chenin Blanc is such a versatile cultivar. I can remember still from my varsity years, if you have to write the exam and you don't know which grape to put in, put Chenin in, 99% of the time it's the right answer. It's from, you can make anything from a dry wine to a sweet wine from it. And also on the viticulture side, there's not a lot of viruses that attacks it. It's a much more robust vineyard, grape for the vineyards. So that's the big attraction, I think, for South Africa, because it can take a lot of water, but it also works perfectly in the dry weather which we're having here. And in the grapes that we choose is all bush vine, all dry land vineyards as well. And we are using some of the older blocks. So maybe in a year, we will have the old wine stickers on there as well. So we are quite happy to work with good farmers, and a grape variety like Chenin Blanc, it's a perfect vessel to have different styles. And you can see in front, we've got 4 different wines we can show today, and all are so vastly different that they can be bottled separately.
So the first one we start off is the Leon Coetzee. She's Nel, I'm Coetzee. And the story behind this wine is that in 2018 we saw the recession, depression clouds coming, financial crisis and stuff. That's my background in accountancy. We had to keep the bank manager happy. So usually what we like doing with our Chenins is longer time in tank or barrel, so 9 months, 10 months, and then leave them in bottle for a bit and then sell them. But to keep the wheels greased, we brought out the Leon Coetzee. So this is all bush vine Chenin from the Swartland, blocks ranging in age from 1971 till about 1983. And yeah, this is the fresh as a daisy 2021. So this was about 6 months in tank and barrel, and then we blend it and it'll be on the shelf for under 100 South African rand.
Which for old bush vine Chenin Blanc, expertly made, is an exceptionally good deal. What's the winemaker's take on this particular wine?
No, I do believe everybody must have the ability to drink good wines. Life is too short to drink bad wine, and with the Leon Coetzee, it's just a nice entry level, but still full of flavour, full of everything you want in a glass of wine. It's sunshine in a glass of wine. That's why we have this beautiful bird also on the label. Again, the Fledge is the bird, but the rays of sunshine.
Well, I love the creativity to it, not just the visuals, but the whole thinking around it. Just as I love the creativity to Chenin Blanc, because there is so much as a winemaker you can do with Chenin Blanc. We've got one example. Let's have a look at a second one if we can, Leon.
Yes, certainly. The Klipspringer Swartland Chenin. Chenin, once again, is the diversity. I always like to say it's diverse. It's like South Africa. The only thing we share in South Africa in commonality is lighting a fire and brine something on it. But that's what makes the place interesting. It's diverse cultures, diverse people all come together. And that's what we do. That's what for us the representation of Chenin is. So there's 4 different soil types, 4 different vineyards, all in one glass, trucked to the Karoo. The little story also, the Klipspringer, they pair for life, so they're like swans. So, but they're less promiscuous than swans. So there's 2 of us. And then also, the Klipspringer is a great bottle for a dinner party, because then you can also become an amateur astronomer, because you've got what it looks like at 3 in the morning out of the windscreen of a 4-ton truck. You've got Orion's belt right in front of you. That's sometimes the only way I know that I'm heading west is Orion's belt's in front of me and I'm driving. And then you've got the Southern Cross, and that's also a nod to the fact that Chenin is an African grape.
All right, well, the best of Swartland coming together beautifully. You've also got some of the best of Stellenbosch, which I see on the back of a couple of bottles. There's proudly Steen as a throwback to a bit of Cape wine history. Give me an introduction to the Stellenbosch Steen.
The Stellenbosch Chenin Blanc is the first wine that we actually bottled and made. We were drinking wine, and we were going to load a truck for bottling, and the one wine we wanted to load didn't really feel for the farm. Didn't feel that we wanted to send it quite yet. It wasn't ready. So we had this tank, 1,000 liters, that we want to full, because you don't want to send an empty tank. So we were walking through the cellar, and then the Chenin Blanc. And that yet was still tank fermented on Silly, so it's just on its lees, still rough. Haven't been filtered, haven't been fined, anything to it, but it was just beautiful, and it just showed that morning so beautiful. And I said, let's load this. Our farm doesn't have a label for it. I said to Leon, this is our chance. This is our first wine. Just we load it. We have it. We made it. We've experimented quite a bit, and it was perfect, and that was the first one we made. And since then, we were looking for different vineyards, but again, we ended up with a beautiful, old vine vineyards, just in Bottlery side, and it's ever since we've been working with the farmers and working with the grapes. It just gives you everything you want.
As I say, there's very clearly a feel and a fondness for Chenin Blanc that you guys have got under your skin, and you've given me 3 wonderful examples so far. I'm looking at the back, and you can't see this from where you are now, but when you pick up your next case, as I'm sure you'll be shortly, and you have a look at the back of this one, I love the understatement. Cape Dry White table wine, and then on the other side a 5-star platter sticker. So it's very, very understated, which to me almost suggests, given the people here and the kind of people I know, that this is going to be something really special.
Yeah, that is Leon's passion product, but our passion product. That's everything you want to experiment and try and diversify and doing. That's South Africa in a bottle.
Like it's 4 fabulous wines here, and again, they're distinctive. They all have their own characters, and they all speak to different interpretations, different terroir, different ideas. And now that's what I love about Chenin Blanc. Only thing so far that's missing: terrific wine. The company is sparkling. We're in a beautiful spot. I'm starting to feel a little bit peckish though, and part of what we do with this Adventure in Chenin series, we bring in usually an internationally acclaimed, world-renowned, much trained, oft celebrated, written about by food writers around the world, culinary expert. Do we have such a person with us today?
Yes, they have definitely the best from that the Klein Karoo can offer. And ek ben is probably the only Michelin star in South Africa. Ek ben
So we've got a lovely 2 fillets of ostrich, and yeah, I'll be braaiing them, and then we've got a few accompaniments to showcase Chenin.
Well, you know what, I think that's absolutely perfect, because it is completely local, it's wonderfully homespun, and then we're going to have a brilliant chef around the fire. And it also allows us to try something a little different. White wine only with fish, well, let's firmly dispel that. Try, amongst other things, some ostrich on the braai with some Chenin Blanc. I think we're in for a rather good afternoon.
It's a lovely piece of ostrich fan fillet, which we organised from Klein Karoo International. Overnight in olive oil with a little bit of soy sauce, and that's all you need. You don't need to muck about with it. It's a bit like making Chenin Blanc. You just go get the best grapes and you let it take its course, nature take its course, and don't muck it up. So hopefully we'll get them medium rare.
So the ostrich fillet has been done, it is just resting, it looks magnificent. But before we get into that, we've got some pumpkin soup, and more importantly, a couple of Chenins to pair with them to see what works perfectly.
Right, so in front of you we have a really lekker rustic farm style winter soup, roast butternut, leek, garlic and carrot. Just basically everything that people have in the fridge in winter, and yeah, it pairs perfectly well with Chenin. We've got the Klipspringer of the Swartland Chenin, so that is a barrel fermented partially and tank fermented Chenin, which we blend together. It's a 2019, and it should work really well. As an oddball, we've got the skin and bones, which is a barrel, stem, skins, pips and all, as we like to call it. It's fermented on skins, so it's a white wine made like a red wine. And this one spent 3 years in barrel before we bottled it, so we'll see the lovely amber colour and the earthy notes to it. So bon appetit. Vagabond, striking V on the bottle. There's a little bit of Latin on the label, Prudentia Sin Vino, which means an independently minded wine. And yeah, it's sort of the tree from which all the Fledge comes from. So it's a blend, it's a Cape blend. And the whole idea is to put in the bottle the best of a vintage at the Cape. We firmly believe that Cape white wines age really well. It's a modern trend, but we've had really great old white wines from the Cape, 20, 30 years old, that have outshone their red counterparts. And this is harking back to the old style of a barrel fermented, barrel matured wine. And it's a white red, a red white. It's just the best. We don't have another country in the world where we could do this.
Sounds like the perfect companion to a little ostrich.
Yeah.
Let's give it a crack. Cheers, guys.
Give it a bash.
Cheers.
Cheers.
What I've loved about this, aside from spending some time with both of you, which really has been fantastic, and having some great food, definitely the best meal I've ever had on an ostrich farm outside of Carlettsville, is that you've given us, as so often is the case with Chenin, but you two have exemplified it, both how much fun you can have making Chenin Blanc and how much reward there is in exploring it, trying it with different food, trying different styles from the range of terroir that Chenin occupies, and I think you guys have covered just about all of them, and giving such a wide range and understanding of Chenin Blanc, and for the sense of adventure in Chenin Blanc, which is what this series is all about. I think you guys tick every box and more. So to both of you, thank you, not just for the hospitality and the splendid food, but for a real lesson in Chenin Blanc and a reminder of why I love it so much and why I think South Africa does as well. So thank you both, and here's to many more glasses of fine wine and many more adventures for Team the Fledge.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Much appreciated.
So there we go, from just outside Carlsdorp on my all-time favourite Ostrich farm, we wrap up Adventures in Chenin with two wine pioneers who travel the Western Cape in search of the perfect vineyards and dig out, amongst the many varieties and many grapes they do, some extra special Chenin Blanc, and I've been lucky enough to try one.